And we're back on Shardlight Radio. I'm your host, Mr. Ben, and today I am joined by our guest, Kalen Nelson, one of the two casters from the recent Indy Champs event. Kalen, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Very glad you were able to find the time to come on the show. We will get to Argent Saga and Indy Champs specifically, but I'd like to start off by giving you a chance to kind of introduce yourself to the audience. What's your background with games in general? And then we'll kind of talk about card games and move towards Argent Saga through your gaming life.
Yeah, absolutely. So games have always kind of been part of my life. For the most part, I kind of grew up playing them. My dad got a Nintendo the year that I was born for his birthday, and I beat Mario before he did. I got it, then I went from Nintendo to Super to N64. The first console that I felt like I really owned and played and loved, and it kind of was my first real dive into gaming on a more serious level, was my PlayStation 2. And from the year that I got it, I got Final Fantasy IX for the PS1, and that's always and forever been my favorite game since I played it, and kind of inspired my eventual career trajectory where I wanted to get into games, be more involved in those communities. Just because I've kind of finally found more deep stories that they can tell, and that they're more than just running left to right on a screen. So I've been in gaming my whole life. Growing up, I played a ton. Then towards the beginning of my career, I focused on being at stores and selling games, because I wanted to go into games themselves at some point. Eventually, I did break in, worked for a year at id Software, working on the 2016 version of Doom. Then after that, I actually moved over to Robot Entertainment, where I worked on the Orcs Must Die and the Hero Academy franchises. Since then, I've kind of slipped out of being at an official game studio. I work in app development now, but I've still kept in those gaming communities, and gaming is still a huge part of my life. Hence why I'm casting at events.
So with such a deep background in video games, does your card game, video game passion cross over? Have you picked up any of Hearthstone or Eternal or those type games, or are they kind of two separate silos?
Well, the biggest thing for me, and I actually like physical card games a lot more than I do digital ones, if for only the reason that I have that actual tangible physical product. And that's something that even took me a incredibly long time with games and movies to actually switch over to digital downloads. I love having the tactile feel of having that physical copy, even if for a video game, the only thing that I do with it is put it in and out of a disc player. But I fiddled around with the digital card games. While I was at id, I actually helped test and kind of get the initial builds of the Elder Scrolls Legends out there. I was one of the first people to play that and kind of give feedback on it. My background at that point in physical card games was pretty instrumental and pretty helpful in me being able to give what I felt was relatively quality feedback. But even when Legends came out, and with Hearthstone and all the other digital offerings out there, something about opening a digital pack just doesn't appeal to me as much as opening a physical booster pack and actually interacting with someone in real life.
Sure, I can completely understand that. To get into card games, which card game did you pick up first? What different ones have you played along the way?
All right, so my parents got me around the same time. I got Pokemon cards, Digimon cards, and YuGiOh cards, because in the late 90s, every show that came out that involved monsters had a card game with it. So I had Pokemon, Digimon, and YuGiOh. YuGiOh is kind of the one that I actually played with friends. I got into it when I was in middle school, and there was a weekly gathering at a local Hastings. That there wasn't organized play, it wasn't tournament or anything like that. I'm pretty sure I was using 100 card deck. I was absolutely terrible. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had fun, and it's the one that I actually interacted and played with people. Then I dropped out. I didn't keep up with that community. I didn't really dive into the game. I definitely didn't stick through and play GOATs or anything like that. I didn't actually come really back into being into card games until I was in college. And at that point, it's where we found, my roommate and I at the time, we just started talking about YuGiOh, and we're like, dude, remember YuGiOh? That was so awesome. We watched some of the episodes of the show, and we're like, I wonder if it's still going. And clearly it was. And we found a local card shop and just kind of went to go check it out, see what things were like, and I bought a zombie structure deck and put together a zombie deck, and my roommate like dropped $400 and put together a forbidden dragon deck that all it does is it's got like painful choice and all that, and all it does is just throw out all of the really strong 3k beaters on the field. And of course I never could beat him because he spent so much money on his deck, but it was a great moment when I finally did, and that was kind of where the dynamic shifted. And we started going to tournaments, we started actually collecting. So this was back in 2010 that I started and kind of really jumped back into card games. And then I played YuGiOh from 2010 to summer of 2014.
So what eventually brought you from YuGiOh into Argent Saga?
Well, so my last year of YuGiOh, I didn't play as much. I mean, I was really ingrained in my local scene, and I was running a lot of events on my own, and just kind of, being more of the organizer perspective as opposed to actually playing. I think my highest accomplishment is I bubbled on day 2 at YCS Atlanta in 2014. That was like the peak of my competitive career. So like
close, but not quite there.
Exactly. Close, but not quite there. I wasn't,
yeah.
I was good at the game, but I didn't have the money or the time or the testing group to really break into that, like Jeff Jones, Patrick Hoban, Billy Brake level of every event I go to. If I don't top, that's the mystery, as opposed to it being, a celebration every time I make a top at an event. So
sure.
I never really was able to break into that bubble, and that's totally fine, because in that last year of my career, like I said, I was with that more organizer perspective, and that's partly because when Ultra Reality Games launched the Circuit Series, I applied to be part of their press staff, and I was accepted and actually ended up leading their press staff, which included writing feature articles, writing matches, doing a bit of social media management for them, and most importantly, starting and running the live stream for the YuGiOh events at the Circuit Series. So for the next year, Ultra Reality Games Circuit Series Dallas, through their first national championship in Columbus, I was I had people non-ironically call me like the voice of ARG. I don't really like that title, and we can talk about that later, but it was mostly whenever it was a live presence, I was there and I was talking to the community and kind of engaging with them in that aspect. And it was funny because, like I said, I'm not one of the greats in YuGiOh. I was good. I understood the game, but I don't have that same analytical mind for it that, say, Jeff Jones does. That was a long spiel to get to your original question, which was, how did I get into Argent Saga? When Jim finally launched the Kickstarter for Argent, I backed it on like day 1 because of a number of reasons. My existing relationship with ARG. I love those guys over there, and they're just a ton of fun, and I want to support them. It's a game I actually believed could be really successful because Jeff Jones, while we're not, super personal friends because we haven't had a lot of time, interacting with each other, I have a ton of respect for him because he's why I kind of kept in YuGiOh a bit longer, and as opposed to just jumping in and playing whatever the most expensive meta deck was at the time, kept trying to make my own stuff work, because he constantly showed people that you don't have to play what's out there. You can make your thing work so long as that's what you're good at. With him designing the game, I assumed that it was going to be a lot of deck building choices and something where a lot of decks would be competitively viable as opposed to just a single dominant deck. And then, like I said, I'm just personal friends with a lot of those guys. So Jim, Brad, Vince, all the team over there. I want them to succeed, so I jumped into the game, kickstarted it. When I got my product and opened it up, I found, much to my detriment and mostly the detriment of my wallet, that I actually really liked the game, and I was just excited to get back in. And then, here we are, almost 2 months later.
Yeah, it does seem like it's taken off in kind of a rocket ship style way. I came across Argent Saga GenCon, and just in the short few weeks since I've discovered it, it feels like the number of posts about stores that have events and just everything, it's just getting more and more and more all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thoroughly impressed with how well the game has kind of, I wouldn't say cemented itself because it still has a long way to grow, but it has established a pretty firm foot in the conversation right now. And I think the first championship drawing over 200 people to it on its own is pretty indicative of the immediate impact the card game has had. We'll see how that goes as we move forward, and as maybe other games react, or maybe Argent has a moment where it actually slips up and reacts in the wrong way to the community. Who knows what the future has, but as it stands right now, I'm actually very impressed with how well the card game's been doing.
Speaking of Indy, given your historic role with being the voice of ARG, as you said you didn't like it being put, where does the Indy Championship fall in comparison to some of these other YuGiOh events that you have voiced?
Well, the biggest thing I want to say about it is that I think it was the smoothest and the most professional that we've done in that time. Granted, I wasn't with ARG from summer of 2014 all the way up through when, they put the Circuit Series on hiatus. But whenever I was there, it was a much more indie show. It was very, we had like duct tape holding webcams to poles to get them in the right place so we could see things. We had like paper that we folded and hung over the poles to try and block out the light to prevent glare. Trevor and I did a lot of makeshift stuff to make things work, and very often it would leave only one person commentating while one person was focusing on managing the stream, so it didn't make for that awesome of a user experience, primarily because I personally believe whenever when you're commentating or providing an experience for somebody on something as relatively slow as a card game, you need that at least two people on the stream to be able to bounce off of each other and generate that conversation, because just doing a simple play-by-play of, okay, he played this card, now he's played this card, let's see what he does after this card, doing a simple play-by-play of that without somebody else to add that color, that flavor to you, or for them to take over for that and you to add the flavor, it can lead to a very stale conversation very quickly, especially if you had gotten into a situation like what we did with the Indy finals, where the game is 3.5 hours long and it's a lot of repeating the same play. Because I can only say, all right, so he brings out the Mayu and then he puts into play the Gloom Oligarch, and the Gloom Oligarch does this, and then he charge drains to do this. I can only say that so many times before it gets just ultra repetitive. So having that extra person made a huge difference, and it's something that I've kind of always championed and pushed for, is to have that second voice on a stream no matter what. And then the other thing is the chat was all super supportive. Yeah, some people were really frustrated with Ergon, but at the end of the day, I didn't see really anybody going, these guys suck, or get this person, go find Jeff Jones, get him on, where's Billy Brake? I didn't see that kind of comments, which I got a lot during the YuGiOh days. And I don't know if it's just that it's a larger community, so there's a larger propensity for Twitch chat to be Twitch chat, where it is just that much more toxic environment. But the community seemed much more supportive at this event than literally any of the other events that I had been to.
So there was some of that fixing things in real time happening here at Indy as well. But even comparing that to historic events, it sounds like it went quite a bit smoother. Is that a fair summary?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Indy was, there was some stuff that was fixed in real time, and there were some ruling questions and things like that. But as an event goes, because separate of working with ARG, and my work in the app studio, I'm also an event manager. I own a company called Let's Play Gaming Expo. And I've done that for 5 years. I've been part of big events like ACON and Anime Fest here down in the Texas area. So I've seen a ton of events. I've been on the back of a ton of events, and I've never seen something run as smoothly as Indy has. In 5 years of doing all of that, 6 if you count my work with ARG before, it had never gone this smoothly. There wasn't a time where people were like being shoved out the doors. The tournament was running very much on time, and if it wasn't for that 3.5 hour final, we would have had top 16 done at like 2 o'clock. So it's actually crazy how smoothly and how well the tournament ran. There are some things that there's always room for improvement, and there are things that can be improved for sure. But the Argent team should be super proud of the event on its own, because it had way more people attend than they anticipated, ran super smoothly despite all of that, and everybody that I talked to said that they had a fantastic time. There wasn't anybody complaining or bemoaning their experience at Indy. Everybody that went was just like, yeah, no, this was fantastic. hats off to them.
What are some of the areas of improvement that you think is something the team should pay attention to between Indy and Richmond? I mean, it sounds like it went very well, but if you had to find something to say, hey, this could be done better, what would it be?
Since most of my experience happened to do with the stream itself, biggest thing that I can think of is on the stream, between rounds, we have those little cards that come up and, they're talking about here's some cool combos you have, or here's what the Game Master program is. At the moment, and this is already something they're working on addressing, at the moment, each of those little individual videos is a separate item in the stream list, and you have to go through and manually switch from one to the other. And since they're set to loop, they auto start once they finish, and then if you don't catch it at the exact right second, it creates this kind of jolt and not such a great user experience on the end user side. So what they're going to do is they're going to actually dump all of those into one video so that we can just put back to that. It'll loop on its own, go through all of them, and then we don't have to worry about manually switching between them. So that's one improvement that they're already going to work on. The other one was Friday was strange for me. Maybe it's just partly it's because they just didn't have a ton of people come out to the event on Friday. Most everybody showed up Saturday. They probably had about maybe 50 people on Friday come through. So like because of that low amount of people, only one round of side events fired. So I came Friday and I was excited. I wanted to try and play some side events since I wasn't going to be able to play in the main event. And I only had time to play through one 8-player shard point flight. They had I think 3 total 8-player flights fire, and then one the giant card battle as well. And I don't know if the giant card battle actually had the maximum number of participants. Friday was still fun, but I feel like there may be something that could be there to incentivize people to show up on Friday so they get more people for those side events. I don't know. Maybe that's exactly what they wanted, is just to have a kind of smooth Friday, get into things, and then do everything on Saturday, Sunday. But that's really the only thing that I can think of off of the top of my head that would have improved my personal experience. I'm sure others have other things that they would like to see improve, but that's kind of where my thoughts go to, is just kind of those little improvements we can make for the stream. And then maybe there's something that they can add on Friday as that little extra incentive. Granted, I was one of the only people that was able to pick up the foil full art shards from the shard point wall, or the prize wall, because they really only had those on Friday because it was first come, first serve. So I guess that was pretty beneficial for me.
Yeah, I guess that was one instance where the low player count on Friday kind of worked out in your favor, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, I got to walk away with that. And they were only 20 points each instead of 30 points on the next day. I don't know if they actually were ever able to restock. That was where it was that bump up for me. I'm like, yeah, I won out here.
All right, so let's get into the kind of meat of the Indy conversation. ARG has already taken steps with regard to suspending Ergon. So I think the question as to whether or not he is unbalanced in the current meta is fairly well answered by their actions. But at Indy, given the experience, what do you think was the most, maybe frustrating is the right word, given that I think it's fair to say that Ergon had some negative impacts on the event. What do you think the worst of those offenses were?
The biggest thing I think is that Ergon right now, with the current pool of cards, the optimum way to play that deck is to, I don't want to say stall or slow play, because that's not what they're doing. They are playing ultra defensively, ultra conservatively, setting up their board, and they're not taking any interactive actions until they have complete control of the field and have relatively solid control of what's in your hand as well. So like Ergon Kite plays defensively until it gets Sylphia, and it can start Sylphia locking you. Ergon Fizzy plays defensively until it hits turn 8, 9, 10, to where it can start locking you with Gloom Oligarch and Mayu. So until the decks get to these power cards, it's kind of antithetical to what most other decks want to do right now. Most of the other decks aren't, I'm going to turtle until my boss monster comes out. It's, I need to go aggressive. I need to interact with the player. I need to break towers, because I need to break the towers to win the game. But with Ergon, the most detrimental thing is that they don't need to break the towers to win the game. They can control, and then they just need to break more towers than you at the end of the day. And I think that was kind of the the most, I guess you used the right word, the most frustrating part about it is because most people that played against an Ergon deck only saw game one.
The impact of him essentially turning Argent Saga into a best of one format instead of a best of three felt real bad. From a viewer position, it's like, well, I want to see more than one game per match. And I'm sure from a player position, it felt far worse. Like, why even bring a sideboard to a lot of these matchups?
Yeah, absolutely. So and I agree, especially from selfishly from a commentator's point of view, I want to see more than just one game as well. Because while playing, I really enjoy those super close games and where it's just like on a knife's edge and then one person just kind of rips that last card that they need and then they seal it. That's awesome. And I want more of that. And while playing against Ergon, specifically Ergon Kite, not necessarily the Ergon Fizzy, the variant that won Indy, playing against Ergon Kite, it always felt like it was those kind of games to me. So like I'm trying to eke out this victory against him. I get so close, and then they finally rip the one card that they need to kind of break my board and get control and wrest it away from me. And I feel like in a game 2, game 3 scenario, that it's one of those things that can go either way in those situations. Since the time limit is 50 minutes per round in a best of 3, with the games going so long because of how defensive they play just naturally, that runs like, I think it was 10, maybe 11 Guardians, and then that's not including recycling the devourments for, even more Guardians. It makes it very difficult to actually push to that game 2 or that game 3 to actually close something out. Whereas if an Ergon Kite versus a Liam deck was unlimited time like the finals was, and I think it would be a much closer matchup overall, as opposed to one game is done, Ergon eked out the victory in the last minutes, and Liam doesn't have enough time in game 2 to actually close out those towers.
Do you think that there is something inherently problematic with the Ergon play pattern, the hyper defensive style, or is the play pattern okay, or will be okay at some future date once there are additional tools put into the game to let players do something other than just that one pattern of play?
As it stands right now, with how much that defensive play pattern is rewarded, I think it's a bit problematic in that regard, because the way I look at it is a statement that always comes back regardless of what game or what sport you're playing. If you play trying not to lose, then you're far less likely to win the game. If you're playing to win, yes, you might make some mistakes, but you're going to have those higher high moments and actually push and win more of your games, so long as you have the skill to back it up, as opposed to playing not to lose, playing scared. Playing this hyper defensive style feels like it's playing not to lose, because that really is the goal, because it does so well at stabilizing later on, and that's why it's rewarded so much, is because of that stabilization. So with cards coming out in set 2 and potential future strategies, it's very possible that whatever it is that they are that they have planned interrupts that stability, because that's really the number one thing that makes Ergon as strong as it does right now, is the consistency to get to where it needs to, and the stability that it is able to offer in the mid and late game. Whereas if you're playing fire and you're playing it, aggro style, you very easily could have down to only maybe two cards in hand by turn 5. Whereas if you may have busted 4 of Ergon's towers, but now Ergon's stabilizing, he's got more Guardians, he's got more shards up to play, Debilitating Miasma, Dust Strike, etc., to control anything else that you put out. It makes it nearly impossible for you to be able to close out that game, just because you've naturally dwindled your resources and you don't have that way to stabilize and get exactly what you need every single turn like Ergon does.
Do you think ARG targeted the right offender here? Do you think that it is indeed Ergon that's kind of the out of whack card in the format, or is it something to do with perhaps the power level of the boss monsters, Mayu and Sylphia, or some other component?
The thing about it is, on their own, Sylphia and Mayu are supposed to be powerful. They are boss monsters or argent rares. You can only run one of them in the deck. But the thing is no other element outside of Dark has a way to effectively recur a unit from the discard zone. And Dark, with Ergon, you could do it every single turn. Without Ergon, you can still do it with Dark, and I've seen some people trying to do so by running Returning Shadows, because then you can get Mayu back, or you can get Sylphia back, and keep trying to push things and do things. But then you still have to invest that as a card. You have to draw it. You have to pay the shards for it and still have the shards up to play your unit afterwards. It makes it much easier to deal with those boss monsters, because there is plenty of unit destruction or unit removal in the game. But those boss monsters hitting the field every single turn, that's what made it problematic, and that's why Ergon is the card to hit, in my opinion, not the boss monsters. Primarily also because I am way more a fan of hit the main problem as opposed to hitting multiple cards, because this one makes it a problem. So yeah, like as a good analog in Yu-Gi-Oh, card that you play is a spell card you play, and it just adds a level 4 or lower hero from your deck to your hand, rather than limiting or forbidding all the heroes that are not heroes, warriors, sorry, all the warriors that are problematic to search with that card. They just limited that card. You can only run one of it, because that way you don't limit your options to play these other cool cards. You just limit the card that makes it the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think lower number of cards and elegance is the better solution the majority of the time. And I think Indy did kind of prove that Ergon was the weak link in the balance chain, and that it wasn't something else. What are some answers that you think we might see coming in set 2, given that we've been given this promise that Ergon will be more balanced what set 2 releases? What kind of effects do you think we might see?
I mean, the most obvious one, of course, would be something that is graveyard disruptive. So something that removes a unit from the discard zone, whether it returns it to the deck or expels it or does something else. Anything like that that actually just removes a unit from the discard zone goes a long way towards disrupting that strategy. Anything else, something else might be just like a instacast expel card, even if it has a monumental cost to it, like it's a 4 or 5 shard card to expel a unit. That on its own is still a very good answer to those loops, because as soon as you get rid of the Mayu, then you don't have to worry about that loop anymore that Ergon can throw out. Yes, they still have Gloom Lock, and they can get Oligarch and recur him again, but the Mayu is really the problem card in that situation. Same thing with the Sylphia. The Sylphia is the problem card, and when you can deal with those boss monsters, then it's not nearly as much of a problem. But then we also have more cards that are kind of coming out, like the spoiler that was let out today, the air card. Its effect is you can discard a Sky Raider or an airship, and then a target unit loses all abilities and cannot declare attacks for as long as the card remains on the field. Dude,
I've been working. Yeah. I missed that card. That sounds great.
Except it's a weak card. It's a 2-cost 1,000 unit, so it can be easily dealt with. People aren't super hot on it right now, but that effect is kind of a testament to what they're shooting for, because like one of the big problems with Ergon, like I said earlier, is it runs 10, 11, 12 Guardians, or you can use the Guardian effect so many more times. So with that, having more of these cards that work like the Skytree Dragon or this new air unit that turn off effects, turn off Guardian, goes a long way towards helping these aggressive decks kind of push the game tempo and push past these walls that players put up. So anything that kind of turns off Guardian, something that maybe destroys towers without having to attack them, so you're just applying that pressure anyways, something that forces your opponent to respond and try to win the game, as opposed to trying to playing not to lose the game.
I think that's a great distinction. The playing not to lose, it's not fun to play against. It's not always fun for the player who's playing it. And Ryan said something when I spoke to him the other day that I thought really hit the nail in the head. That he said that when the best way to play the game isn't fun, that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree entirely. So when the best way to play is that just inherently not fun style, when the best way to play is Final Countdown Exodia, then that's a problem. You need to fix that. So anything that promotes non-interactive play is a problem, in my opinion. If only for a selfish reason. That's part of why I like this game so much. There aren't there's no negation. There's no crazy hand traps. There's no counter spells and counter traps to keep me from being able to play my cards. I'm playing my card. Something is happening. Yes, you might remove that card before I can utilize it fully, but I'm still interacting with you. You are having to do something that either gives me my card back to play the next turn, or you're going down in card advantage to remove it from the field. Something that actually promotes interactive play like that, where we're going back and forth and killing each other's towers and units, makes a big difference in play. And whenever your deck is incentivized to not do anything, if we can go 60 minutes into a game and not a single tower has been broken, that doesn't feel fun to me.
There was a significant portion of the finals that I spent listening to you guys with headphones in and my phone in my back pocket while I dug ditches in my backyard. Like, I didn't want to miss it if something important happened, but that was the level of attention I had to pay to follow the game.
You wouldn't be the only one. I do that all the time when listening to like a League of Legends championship or stream, and it's just like, oh, yep, in the pocket. Let's get headphones and let's listen.
Yeah, if it starts to get cool, I'll pull my phone out and watch that bit, and then go back to work. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So here at the end, I guess, was there anything else that you wanted to comment on about the Ergon situation or about casting the Indy Champs as an experience before I move on to my silly end of the show questions?
Yeah, so just on the Ergon point, again, I really appreciate how quickly the Argent team reacted to the situation and very clearly saw that it was a problem, if only because it was universally perceived as a problem. I'm very much of the opinion that if it hadn't been suspended, that you can tailor your deck and your experience to beat out Ergon and to just kind of take the game back and deal with it. But with so many of the top 8 decks, so many of the top 16 decks being Ergon decks, it wouldn't matter whether you could or couldn't tailor your deck to compete against it. That would be what you would see at your locals, at your regionals this coming weekends, at the championship in Richmond. It would have defined the metagame, even though the game is set up to offer more answers to these decks and these cards. Public perception would have just been Ergon is the best. We have to play Ergon and nothing else. So I appreciate how quickly they reacted, and that it has made significant changes in showing their willingness to react to the community and make these changes kind of on the spot without real warning.
Yeah, they move so fast. I think they deserve extremely high marks for going, okay, we can't just let this sit. And I'm so happy that they did. The fact that if there's a problem, they're signaling not only speed in fixing this problem, it kind of tips the hand that, hey, if there's problems in the future, we're not going to let you guys have a rotten meta for 6 months while we sit on our hands. Yep, and I think that's absolutely really important for a new game.
I agree entirely. So bring on these next questions.
So if you have to choose one camp, would you rather see the game move in a direction that makes the kitchen table casual people happy, or cater more heavily to the try-hard competitive player?
I mean, my ideal answer is both, honestly.
Well,
but
the right answer
is both, but I have to choose one, and I have to say competitive in this regard. I love the casual player, and I love creating casual events. It's like, people have talked about like the Conquest format, and I want to try this, and this, but I super appreciate games that cater to that competitive audience and make adjustments based on them, or release cards based on them. You can argue that the promo situation right now is something that's catered to that competitive audience because it incentivizes people to go to these championships, to go to these regionals, to go participate in their local stores. And the reason for that, and why I support that personally, is a game will live or die based on its most fervent players, and the most fervent players in your game, ideally, even from a business sense, the whales of your game are the competitive, are the hardcore players, and they're the ones that you need to please, because they will be your absolute biggest brand ambassadors to the rest of the world and to the other card shops out there, getting your product on the store and getting your game in other people's hands. Yes, you want to please the casual player and you want people to be, sitting in their kitchen playing Argent Saga, but the competitive nature and building that community together, whether your local store or at these championships, that means so much more in the long run, especially for a brand new card game. They need to establish that community, and then the casual people will follow suit.
Excellent. Why is the Azure Seer a superior one-drop for water than Mr. Kent?
She's not. If I had to give a reason why she is, it's exclusively that she can bust a tower. She can hit the air tower and she can hit the fire tower and they die. That is the only reason that she's superior. Yes, you can take the card from the top of your deck and put it on the bottom, but here's the situation. Let's say that I reveal Twilight Knight off the top of my deck, and it's turn like 3 or 4. It's like, I kind of want this in my hand, but I definitely don't want to draw it next turn, and I definitely don't want to set it to the bottom of the deck where I'm not going to see it literally the entire game. Whereas if I had revealed Twilight Knight with Mr. Kins, whatever the next card is, I can just swap the two of them. Yeah, it doesn't go to the bottom of my deck, but then during the opponent's turn, I use Mr. Kins, I draw the card I wanted to do, set Mr. Kins on the top. Now I'm still not drawing that Twilight Knight, and I can delay it as many times as I want to keep pushing it down and down without sending it all the way to the bottom of my deck. Mr. Kins is the superior card. Azure Seer can break towers, though.
I think this may actually be another question where the really correct answer is both. But
yes,
given your love of Mr. Kins, I had to kind of tease a little bit.
I play both at 3 in good old Weenie Hut Jr. And anytime that I do a blue deck from here on out, it's both of them at 3 until better cards come out. They're one drops. They're both really dang good. Play them both.
Oh, the one drop we got in Generations didn't dethrone Kins or the Seer then, huh?
Some might say that didn't go as expected.
Oh, dude, you nailed it with that. Okay, if there was any game effect that you could have added into the game, like a fantasy card, what would you like to see Argent Saga do?
Okay, I really love combat tricks, and one of my absolute favorite cards in YuGiOh was Honest. And I would love to see, maybe not a card that in and of itself you just drop and you just win that combat right away, no matter what unit you're playing against. But I kind of would like to see he's traditional. When you put him out, he's a weenie unit, but his attack power is like X 500. So like he can't bust a tower, but the X is equal to the cost of the unit that he's attacking. Something like that. So like if you're attacking a Mayu that has 6, his power is suddenly 6,500. Something like that can get over
that's cool.
Most of these units, but can't bust towers on his own. Something like that I think would be really cool, because I want big power units to actually start mattering. Because right now, effectively in the game, there is no difference between Iskandar at 5,000 attack and a golem token at 1,500 attack, because both of them can kill a tower, and that's all you need to do to win the game. You don't have to kill your opponent's units. You don't have to get through them. You can deal with them with removal. There's no real pressure difference between having a 4,000 beater on the field and a 1,500 beater on the field, unless you have an equivalent guardian that can't be removed in any other way, shape, or form.
I hadn't thought about that before, but that's a very good point, that there's not enough high-level power differentiation in the game yet.
Yeah, and part of that is because it doesn't mean anything. So
yeah,
like I said, just having that 1,500 versus a 3,000, there's no real difference in them unless that power is like bleeding over and attacking another tower or damaging another unit, something like that. The only thing that it means is this unit, I think the only time where it actually matters objectively right now is Iakuma Juggernaut, because it can stand after every single attack. So having that 3,000 power makes it a pretty substantial wall to get through. Whereas if you have Gygath, the first gargoyle, I think is what his name is, on the field, and he's a 3,000 attacker, that in and of itself doesn't mean anything unless they have a similar 3,000 blocker on the field.
All right. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of everything I had in the notes to ask. I'd like to give you an opportunity here at the end of the show to give shout outs, plugs, promotion for anything that you would like to do that for.
Yeah, I am a moderator in both of the Argent Saga Discords, so those are where you kind of can get most active conversation about the game, so shout outs to both of them. The Facebook group is fantastic. I try to post polls daily to get people kind of interacted in the community and kind of really focused on starting conversation and pushing people to be more interactive. And then myself, unfortunately, I don't really do Twitter, so I can't say, oh, follow me at Mascarin. You can if you want, but I probably won't be tweeting out much of anything. Facebook's the best way to keep up with me. And then I am going to start posting some videos to my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Kalen Nelson. And yeah, you'll start to see a little bit more content from me coming forward. Probably this podcast will be out by the time it's released, but I will have a spoiler card for Genesis video going out tomorrow. That's Saturday, the 21st. So that will be going out. You can follow me on YouTube. I'm going to do some more fun stuff, kind of akin to the hype video that I did for Indy, which was just utterly ridiculous. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that and see some more stuff coming.
All right. Well, thank you again for being on the show. It's been awesome to take an hour and chat about cards and the overall game scene of Argent Saga. And I'd be glad to have you back anytime you want to come, man.
Oh, you know what? I'm always down for a sequel, so I'll be happy to come on. And yeah, again, thank you so much for bringing me on to talk.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a good one.
Absolutely. You do the same.